Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine. Dan, can I make a prediction for this episode, Dan?
I suppose you can. I don't know if I can stop you.
Okay, first try to stop me. Is there a way? Maybe there's a way.
Well, we just need to answer everyone's question first, which is yes, this movie does have a new theme song from Eminem. It's called Last One Standing. It has Skylar Grey singing the hook.
Oh, is that the one that plays at the credits where it's like Venom?
Well, like...
I love when movies do that.
So, like, the first movie just had one of the worst Eminem songs of all time, which was Venom, Venom, which is terrible. And so everyone's like, oh man, they can do another one? Like, the day before this movie came out, it was announced that, yes, there is a new Eminem song, except this one is, like, a real song. So, it's a better song, but it's not nearly as funny. But then there's a second song over the credits I didn't really look for it, but it is just a woman repeating the words like Venom.
Oh, so that was a different one. So they have two licensed original songs.
There's one that got Eminem, Mr. Marshall Mathers back, and there's another one that went ahead and did the Venom thing again. Which is Venom.
That's awesome. Venom. But you have not effectively stopped me from starting the episode the way I thought, which is, Daniel, I totally predict that this will be the worst movie we review on the podcast. I cannot think. I just
ever.
I think ever.
Impossible.
Okay. Qualifiers. It's not one that we go, we got to talk about it because it's the worst movie ever, and so then we talk about like The Room or something or Trolls 2. Like those are bona fide, already confirmed bad movies. But this is like we were just. I wouldn't say we're looking forward to Venom 2, but like we're gonna have to talk about Venom 2 because it's coming out. Venom 1 has a weird following of like. Basically proving to the world that you can make, quote unquote, a superhero movie with everything in between and it'll still make money. And so it's like, okay, we have to talk about this. We have to do this. This is cutting into our original plans of doing a thing called Wholesome Halloween, where we were just going to talk about cute kids horror movies that were fun, that we still like. Paranorman's kind of like that. We're going to do like Coraline, some others. And we were like, well, we still got to do Venom 2. And I sit down and within 5 minutes, I'm like, this is just horrible. And within 10 minutes, I lean over to Catherine and I literally poke her a few times. She leans in and goes, what? And I'm like, this is a disaster. And then like we get further into this movie and it's just getting worse. And I'm just like, I'm like amazed because this is not to the same degree because I wasn't alive enough to really understand what it was like to go from Star Wars Episode 1 to Episode 2. But like, this is literally like, everyone going, well, it can't be worse than Venom 1. And then it's worse than Venom 1. Like, it was just terrible.
I'm going to say something that's going to shock you. This movie is getting exponentially better reviews than Venom 1.
I know. I saw on Letterboxd. On Letterboxd,
all across the board. Yeah.
I'm on Letterboxd right now. Well,
not just I look at the first... critically, too.
I don't get it. It's worse. Maybe it's because people are just like, the first one sucked. And now if everyone just accepts that it sucks, this is funny. And also maybe it's because of the end credit scene for two reasons, which we'll talk about most definitely. Because there's like, you can talk about the end credit scene for 2 hours, but you can talk about Venom 2 for maybe 5 minutes. But like, because there's so many interesting reasons of like, well, because of the end credit scene, is the rest of the movie a joke? Like they're punking somebody? Or is it them going, let's try our best? And they pulled up their big boy pants and this was their best and it's a disaster.
I kind of disagree in the idea that we can't talk, because I think this movie, I mean, like, spoilers, I didn't think it was very good either, but I think it's bad in a kind of interesting way where there's so many really strange decisions that, like,
it's awkward,
really baffle me.
This is the movie equivalent of accidentally opening a bathroom stall that someone's already sitting in. This is that. This is an awkward and embarrassing movie to watch where there was one point I kind of just like reclining movie theater chair. So you're sitting all the way back, you're laying down, and I had to sit up to put my head in my hand because I was just embarrassed sitting in this packed theater.
That happened to me too. I'm wondering if it's the same scene. There was a scene where I did that. Or
there
just
were multiple.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I can't believe I'm publicly witnessing someone in a bathroom toilet, which is not in the movie, but it's like, that's what this feels like. It's like you invited all your friends to go into the same stall and then someone's sitting there and it's your mother. Like, this is just the worst. It's so embarrassing.
So I opened up Facebook. I posted in the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group, and
which everyone should join.
A group, also with just a bunch of my friends who are nerds. Which I started a group that's just my friends, and the group managed to get to 150 people, which is weird because
we have 150 friends. That's really cute.
I know, but so no one in the Cinematic Doctrine group responded because I literally posted. I was like, "We're reviewing Venom 2 tomorrow. If drop your thoughts, and we may include them on the show." And no one in the Cinematic Doctrine group did that, even though that group has like over 500 people. So, but I got some responses in the group that's not Cinematic Doctrine, just people I know. And my friend John, who went to school for writing, like English, he was an English major. He studied like creative writing. He specifically went to school to write screenplays. He has written some that, I haven't gone anywhere. I think, if I remember correctly, his response is, God, I love this movie. It leans so much more to the romantic comedy than the almost constant body count Carnage racks up throughout the movie. Seems distracting. Mid-credit scene, it was great. But he loved it. And I went online, and there's a whole faction of people whose opinions I deeply respect, who, like, either because they have odd opinions or they have unconventional taste in movies, or they're just general critics, who are like, this movie is so stupid. This movie makes zero sense. I loved it. This movie is terrible, but it's terrible in the ways I find they're entertaining. I wanted to feel that way about the movie, but for various reasons I couldn't go that far. But like, there's a whole market. And people ask me, like, is this movie good? And my response diplomatically, because I want to say my opinion for the show, has been, if you like the first one, it's that stuff again. So if you really like the first one,
but it's not. It's really not.
I think it's about the same.
This movie, it's worse in quality. I think like the first movie has a plot, even if it's bare bones. And
this one also had a very bare bones plot. It's just like cut down. It's bizarrely cut down.
This isn't even bare bones though. This is like bone meal. This is like it's been grinded down to like
it's there.
This is a movie that Tumblr wrote in 2008 when they were like, man, I love Eddie Brock and Venom's romance. I really want them to have a relationship.
Yeah, that's a plot.
But that's like
that is a plot.
That is a plot.
It can be bad and still be a plot.
That's fair, but it's okay. Fine, it's a bad plot.
Yes.
It's boring, and I guess
now we've reached the middle ground.
Okay. Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand cinematic doctrine. You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as low as $3 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content like The Pre-Show, which features free-form and Christian-friendly discussions on all kinds of topics, as well as influence the podcast. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Previous movies our lovely Patreon supporters have chosen are To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Hamilton, Onward, and American Gospel Christ Alone. Huh, you guys have good taste. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later. And you know what? Here it is. Oh, this is another one of these episodes where we don't even need an introduction section, but I'll just at least tell you what it's introduced to as on the Letterboxd website. The only description for this movie...
I can give a more accurate description once you read the
The description for this movie on Letterboxd is literally sequel to the box office hit film Venom. That's it.
Well, to be fair, that really sums it up. But
it doesn't tell you like what's going to be the drama between Eddie Brock and Michelle Williams' character. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Michelle Williams, you're in this movie.
No, there's a ton of great actors in this. Like Naomi Harris, man, oh man, does she give everything to try and make this part work? But Woody Harrelson's having a lot of fun, obviously.
When we were driving home, I said to Kat, I think New Mutants was better. I really think I
couldn't finish New Mutants, so
New Mutants is more interesting as a movie in terms of like existing in the real world to talk about.
Sure, yeah, in that way, yes.
New Mutants has action/horror sequences that are at least satisfying. It has characters that are like a bit more than one-dimensional, which isn't to say one-dimensional characters can't work. There are a lot of movies I've seen that have essentially that, and that's fun. But like, I guess as this movie is getting positive reviews from people who are just being overwhelmed with so much, and maybe
I can tell you, I haven't read any of them, but I can tell you why they probably gave this like even mild praise. I have some hunches as to why.
There are some scenes in this that I think work in the sense that they look like they were from the first cut and they were actually thought about. And then there are other scenes, like the entire first 15 minutes looks like the fourth reshoot. Like it looks like 4 reshoots later where we're like, oh wait, we got to do this because we know like no one's going to understand this movie. And it's like, what do you mean? Like the scenes that make sense work. There's a scene when like Eddie Brock is going into a prison and he's got his Lions jacket on. And then the next scene is him inside the prison and his jacket's gone and he's wearing a different undershirt. And it's like, I literally was like, I just said out loud, where did jacket go? Like, and then when he's leaving the prison, it shows him reaching to grab it. So it's like, you know, like someone in the outfit department was like, "Ah, crap! Like we got to give him his jacket back."
Someone went home with that jacket by accident.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, he just left it at home. Like some actors, how they keep outfits. Was it like Ryan Reynolds keeping the Deadpool outfit? You figure
he
like
just left it with it apparently.
Tom Hardy just went home with Venom just in real life. He's just living with them.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it's pretty obvious to anyone listening before we get into spoiler section how we kind of both feel about the movie.
It's just the worst.
Before we get into it, I want to highlight a few things that I think are good.
Can I guess the things that you really liked about the movie?
Sure.
Okay, I think the banter between
liked is strong.
Well, when you compare to like the awkward feelings of the movie, then I guess it's like the scales are there. I think the joking scene where Venom becomes a new like proponent for the LGBT community, because I thought that was funny. This scene where Venom is basically covered in neon lights that are rainbow and he's saying, "I'm free. This person didn't love me, but finally I'm free." But it was also the only scene that looked like it had a set and character props, and the CG actually looked finished. So I'm gonna guess that's one of the scenes that you really enjoyed.
No, believe it or
you didn't
not,
like that at all.
I thought I would. I actually heard about it before I went to the movie, and everyone's like, "There's a super funny, like, really bizarre club scene," and I was like, "Okay." And then when it's happening, I was like, "Oh, like
that's it."
I don't know. That scene just like something about it just didn't work for me. I think it's because it's like I kind of like guessed the joke the minute he walked on stage. I was like, oh, he's gonna give a big mopey speech. And
I love your costume.
Yeah,
I made it myself.
Like I like this scene more in theory than actually watching it, if that makes sense.
Well, that's a lot of the scenes. They're interesting as YouTube clips. This Sony could have just broken new ground and been like, here's Venom 2. It's a series of 10-minute YouTube clips, just like you used to do.
Like when Neil Blomkamp decided to be a short film director for a little bit.
Yeah, because he couldn't get any money. No one was going to hire him. He should have just done that Halo movie like everyone wanted him to in 2008. Oh, well.
Is that it for your guesses?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of another one. Did you like Mrs. Chen? I liked her until a scene later in the movie.
So, okay, here is what's really strange about the movie is, first off, Tom Hardy really likes this character. Like, the story pitch is one he co-wrote. He's a producer on the movie. He like really acted his heart out. Like, there's stories of him on set, like basically acting with himself for extended periods of time.
I clapped when Tom Hardy flew against the wall.
Yeah, it's like, so like he really likes, and it really feels like Tom Hardy had a different movie in mind. And it feels like, and I don't have any insider information or anything, but there's a movie in here that is more akin to like an 80s or 90s weird buddy comedy. There used to be a bunch of these. You used to have movies like Mannequin, Weird Science, Encino Man, like these weird comedies, but they had like a science fiction or fantasy premise. And my entire feeling of the movie can be summed up with a tweet from Todd in the Shadows, who's a music critic. But he said the Venom movies would be a lot better if they weren't superhero movies. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
If Venom and Tom Hardy had to save an orphanage by winning a breakdancing contest, instantly better.
Mm-hmm.
And there are scenes in this movie where that movie is trying to break out. Like, there's an early scene where Eddie Brock is interviewing Cletus Cassidy, and Venom points out to him that there's like tons of writing on Cletus's cell. And later, Venom, from memory, writes out all the drawings, and from there they solve like a cold case. And that scene I thought was legitimately funny and interesting. And I was like, that would be a good movie. Like, if it's just like Eddie Brock 5 minutes. Yeah, it's 5 minutes, but it's like the demon detective duo. Like, I would see that movie. Or there's another scene where later Eddie is going through some heartbreak, and Venom is like making him breakfast and getting his mail, and he's destroying everything. And it's
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, what if the movie was just Eddie trying to find love again, and he's going on blind dates, and Venom is ruining his dates, and in the movie he finally meets a woman he connects with. Turns out she's got the symbiote. It's this movie's version of Carnage. You know, like, oh, what a wacky, like, quadruple couple. You know, that kind of stuff would have been way funnier, way more interesting. Granted, nobody in the world would like that movie. This movie would tank because there's no monsters fighting, because that's what people want, which is a growing theme of the podcast, which is me pitching movies that only I want and no one else would see.
But people like Joker. And maybe that's just because people are edgy and they like putting makeup on, and now they like using the Joker paint to protest or whatever. But like, people liked that movie. And so you could do something like that, and it would be infinitely cheaper to make.
And it would be more interesting. Like, this,
you don't even have to animate Venom because it's just in his head. So it's like, it's so much cheaper to do.
There's like a fun scene really like within the first 5 minutes where like he rushes to the bathroom because Venom keeps like trying to show up, and it turns out he's in the women's room, and Venom's like destroying things, and like more stuff like that would have been good. But they make a very strange decision halfway through the movie to ruin the one thing in the movie that's like completely working, which we can get into in the spoiler section. And then I also like that this movie has a serious case of good actors, bad movie, where Woody Harrelson is having so much fun playing like the most evil guy ever exists. Naomi Harris is trying so hard to make the most underwritten, pointless character interesting. And gosh darn it, Tom Hardy is having so much fun.
Awkward character. Everything about her was just weird.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's weird. So that's the stuff I liked. But like, it's sprinkled throughout the movie where it was enough to keep my attention. And then the eventual like freak show fight where Dracula fights the Wolfman in this movie, where Venom and Carnage fight, I thought that was reasonably entertaining for what it was. But this movie strangely lacks any sort of bite. Like, they seem to cut most of the borderline scary things from the first movie, where this scene, and the handful of times that it does kind of ratchet up the violence, my theater got uncomfortable. Like there's a scene where Cletus Cassidy's breaking someone's like kneecaps with a hammer, and my theater like winced because it was the only time that like the serial killer in the movie acted like a serial killer.
Well, it's like Cletus steals a car and then kills a minimum wage worker by stomping on his head. And it's less like it's like just a reminder, you're not supposed to like this guy.
Well,
just remember.
There's a great scene where you get his backstory and it's animated like a children's book.
But it's like horrible.
I like that a lot. Like it was great because it's so bluntly like, first I like pushed my grandma down the stairs, then I like killed my mom. And it's so like on the nose, like blunt and like dark. I was like, that's kind of fun. And they ruined that later too, but whatever. I was like, why movie? Why? Like, one of the big criticisms I have, which I'm sure we're going to do more, which is a phrase I say a lot on the show, is like they seem to want to make Carnage a sympathetic character, which I like that it panned out. My thing going forward, I kept mentioning like Carnage is a boring character. I don't like him. And this movie seemed to realize that, so they tried to give him more dimensions, but the dimensions ruin the only thing about the character that's kind of fun.
Just
in a
make
movie.
him evil.
Yes, why couldn't he just be evil? Why do they keep trying to make him more sympathetic? The good guy of the movie is almost just as evil as the bad guy at points.
Yeah.
What's the point? So I do not like the movie, but if you like Venom 1, and you're like most people apparently, because most people I've talked to seem to like the movie.
If you like fan fiction, you're going to have a blast with this movie because it's edited like fan fiction. The dialogue is like fan fiction. The scenes look like fan fiction. This looks like if you got like, you remember a couple years ago when that one guy on YouTube, he like, yeah, what a great way to start a description for a YouTube video.
I've seen YouTube, yes.
I've seen guys on YouTube. He basically just recreated Revenge of the Sith with his friend, and they just used like their kitchen and their street. And like that's this movie, but with like a budget. It is just a recreation of something like Tom Hardy wrote.
You just described all movies, though.
Yeah, he's just in it. Sure, but I don't know. Some people are more inspired when they're killing time on the bathroom when they're just writing. I don't know why I keep thinking of the bathroom. I mean, I guess I just went maybe like 30 minutes ago because I just woke up. I don't know. My movie theater has the worst bathrooms in the world. They're disgusting. I hate it. I think
Melvin, this is not the best use of your platform right now.
Talking about bathrooms is more interesting right now than Venom 2. This is just a disaster, man. I laughed at the end when everything's sort of just like happening. It's so stupid when Carnage literally quotes the movie's title, when Venom cries and he has anime tears. When
that stuff was great. The movie's just losing what little control it has.
When Naomi Harris aggressively chokes a man and kicks him off the like roof. Just this movie is so stupid. When Venom and Carnage fight like Batman and Superman, and Venom grabs him and swings him around and throws him into a couple columns. Why does everybody keep doing that? It looks stupid. I laugh when Carnage turns into a tornado. I don't understand what's going on. And then why can't we watch people get eaten? Why can't we watch people get eaten? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I was like, is there something about head trauma that just like terrifies the MPAA?
The president of Sony's dad's head was eaten. He just was very sensitive about it.
We couldn't even watch Carnage get eaten. Like, it's because we have to watch Woody Harrelson's reaction shot, which is just him on the ground.
That's a pretty big spoiler, Melvin.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's not, you know what, listener? It's not even the biggest spoiler.
Okay.
Wow. Well. I was debating on in the introduction starting with just because I had several that were not positive for the film. And one of them was literally, there are no spoilers. Spoilers are a joke. This movie doesn't matter. We're going to talk about everything. And then I was going to list off every spoiler that was in the movie.
I mean, this isn't even the worst superhero movie I've ever seen. So this is the first movie I was able to see for free because we have enough Patreon supporters where we are able to purchase for me an AMC A-list subscription. So thank you guys for supporting us. And with further support, who knows what we could do. Right now, we're able to watch movies, which is pretty important to the show that we do. So, but we wouldn't have got here without you guys' support. And so thank you. And thank you for allowing us to see Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. You guys made all of this possible. So.
I love that this is, I think it was like halfway into the movie, I realized, oh man, this is the first one Dan is using A-list for, which I guess at least you didn't have to pay for it. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah. And I had one of those $5 rewards things. So I was able to pay for my large drink for the most part. I only spent like $1.50 on the whole trip. So
yeah,
thank you. So as I was sitting in the theater, it was a theater mostly composed of the types of people who would see Venom 2 opening night. And the guy behind me turns to his friend and goes, "Are you ready to divide your life into two distinct parts, before and after you saw Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage?"
I don't even disagree with that sentence. Like what movie was I looking at? There was a review, and I'll just borrow it for this one. They said like this movie produced negative laughs. Because I watched this movie in the future, I will laugh less. It's just like this movie is that, but with joy or actually stability, because it's so awkward. I feel like in the future when I think of this movie, I'll think to myself, oh gosh, do I have pants on? Like I'm gonna feel just so uncomfortable every time I think about this movie.
Yeah, so you clearly hate this movie and everything about it, but
it's not the worst movie I've seen this year. That is He's All That. It was so bad, but this is the second worst movie I've seen this year.
Okay, that's fair. I will say, so as I mentioned, there's somewhere buried underneath whatever this is, there is a amusing, engaging, possibly endearing buddy cop, odd couple kind of movie. Andy Serkis has gone on record as saying that he kind of directed the movie like it is a romance between Venom and Eddie Brock, which makes more of the movie make more sense.
Is he like trying to pull like an Ari Aster? Midsummer's a breakup movie. Okay, buddy. Yeah, I don't know a breakup movie with head trauma and people suiciding, but okay, sure.
There's a breakup in it, that's for sure. We've all been there. We've all been in that bear, metaphorically. But for some reason, this movie feels a need to be constrained into what can be called a conventional superhero structure, which is you have a good guy and a bad guy. The bad guy has some goal. In this case, they give Carnage a girlfriend, which is a thing in the comics. However, in the comics, it's a lot less romantic. There's kind of like in the comics, it's more clear that they just like it's like a drug addict thing where they both just get a huge amount of excitement out of being together as two very dangerous people. Where here, it's like they genuinely love each other, which is weird. So it's funny because like, there is a clear, obvious parallel that they're drawing between this and another movie. So it's much like Woody Harrelson's famous role in Natural Born Killers is kind of what they're going for with him and Naomi Harris in this film, except if, they were both super villains from Marvel Comics. And yeah, that's very strange. So the whole thing is like, there's a thing where like Eddie Brock is interviewing Cletus Cassidy, and then he basically causes Cletus' his execution to be pushed forward. And at some point, someone's like, oh man, how do we make a movie out of this? Like, what do we do? It's like, for 2 straight movies, I got the sense that like all they had was a pitch, and no one was really clear on how to make a movie about Venom. Partially because they've completely divorced Venom from the main thing that makes him interesting, which is, or at least this version of Venom, the Eddie Brock one,
right?
Which is his dynamic with Spider-Man. That was the thing that kind of defined him and made him an interesting character. And divorced from that, they're trying to find something to do with the guy. And they've actually kind of stumbled into an interesting thing, or what if we made it a borderline odd couple pseudo-romantic thing where Eddie and Venom have this like love-hate relationship,
which is interesting. I will get in line and say that's pretty cool. I want that, but I just why can't it be better? Like
I know.
In the first 10 minutes, what is it when Venom is like basically saying, "Hey Eddie, you got to do some self-care. I know you're not feeling well because also my heart's broken too," and I was like, what? That was the first. I can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah, there's like Eddie's driving his motorcycle with his helmet up in the rain, and he's like, "You can't hurt me. You won't let me hurt myself." And then like he gets into it. I don't know. It's so
I'm
dumb.
sorry. I cannot mend a broken heart. And I actually started to laugh in the theater.
I was like, oh my
what
gosh,
is this?
I feel like this, because here's what I don't like about all of this is that, and this just reminds me when I went to go see Jurassic World 2, and I had, and look, people can like what they like. That's totally fine. And emotions are frustratingly strange. They almost kind of take over the body and you have to learn to regulate them. So I get it when like something happens on screen, you react to it. But in Jurassic World 2, when I was watching it, the person behind me was so into it that they were like, or like, oh my gosh, or like, that's scary, or like anything. And if you've seen Jurassic World 2, it is one of the dumbest movies on the planet. It is, and it's dumb in comparison to the amount of money and like franchise hope that is behind it. It is very, very bad. And like this movie kind of feels like that, where it's like, I can feel like I'm in a room where half of the people, no, a tenth of the people get that this is not working. And then the other 9 out of 10 people are going, wow, that's really deep. he can't mend a heart. That's tough. You know what? I can't mend a heart either. And then they're connected with
been there, Venom.
And then they're just remembering like revving their engine and driving off like into the sunset. Also, is it just me, or is there never a sun in San Francisco? There was maybe 1 or 2 scenes that were in daytime. It's almost like they're in Alaska with this movie. Anyways, just a weird setting thing.
Yeah, it's because the Venom effect probably doesn't look great in light. That's my assumption.
It doesn't. We see it at the end, and it looks really bad.
That's true, actually. So, yeah, so they have to find a reason for Venom and Carnage to fight. And so there's a really strange scene where Cletus Cassidy, for some reason, he knows a lot about Eddie Brock's past and everything. So he just like, which I don't know if in this world that's just like common knowledge, the stuff with his parents and stuff like that. But he like goads him into like attacking him, and then he bites. You see this in the trailer. It doesn't make more sense in context of the movie, where like he bites Eddie's hand and he gets some of the symbiote on him. Which in the comics, Eddie Brock and Cletus Cassidy are cellmates. And like that's how they know each other, and that's how Cletus gets a bit of the symbiote. And so then when they actually go to execute Cletus Cassidy, he just turns into Carnage, and then he goes to rescue his girlfriend who's being held at Ravencroft, and then they fight. And that's like the whole movie. Like I just described the entire plot of the movie because not a lot happens. It's really weird.
Not a lot.
The movie feels longer, and part of it is that there's a point midway through the movie where Venom and Eddie Brock break up. And so Venom goes and he starts finding other hosts, and that's how we get the nightclub sequence. And it's the worst decision they make because, like, the only thing in the movie that really works is the Eddie Brock Venom dynamic. And when the movie's void of that, there's just nothing on screen to look at.
There's nothing to do. But even the thing that was frustrating with the Eddie and Venom dynamic is I just don't know what anyone's saying, because they modulate Venom's voice so much. And it's just really tough to be like, especially at the end, there's like a punchline and I just can't understand.
Really? It might be a theater thing because I could hear him fine.
I don't know. I saw it in a Dolby screen. Audio is always great. Oh, and that's something too. I like the audio in this movie sounded really bad. Typically, so Dolby screenings are like, it's an 8K screen or projection, really great seats, and then also the audio quality is just killer. And I am a big stan for Dolby over IMAX. I think IMAX is worse than standard. Don't do IMAX. In the screening, like all of the audio sounded weird. Certain scenes sounded different in terms of like dialogue. Like that's how like part of why I felt like, oh man, this sounds like it was a reshoot. Because like all the dialogue sounded like it was either a shotgun mic or just not finished in post-production. And then when you have like a heavily modulated voice like Venom's, it's like, I'm really having a lot of hard time just like understanding what's being said here. Maybe you had a different experience, but man, mine was like, I don't know. This is just bad in every way, just every single way.
Yeah, my theater, you could hear Venom and everyone perfectly fine. There were moments where like the sound really ratcheted up, and it was like too loud. But yeah, like Venom's one-liners and stuff were pleasing the crowd I was in. Everyone could hear him fine. There's one guy who just laughed inappropriately throughout the whole movie. So like there's tons of scenes that like...
You had Arthur Fleck at your screening?
Yeah, it was very strange. Like there's a scene where like he just goes, and when he goes and sees Michelle Williams' character for the first time, the guy in the theater started laughing. It's very weird.
Women.
Yeah, it was very. He was, and then it got to the point where like he was making other people laugh because they found he was funny. Just like, what's with this guy?
Maybe that's what he just like feeds on, or maybe he's got a symbiote to make him jokes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, who are we to judge? That's the moral of this movie. And yeah, it felt like they were just trying to find a reason to put Michelle Williams in the movie. So after Venom and Eddie break up, but it's become clear that Cletus Cassidy has a symbiote, and so Michelle Williams is like, we gotta do something. So she has to go track down and find Venom. And so Venom is taking over the Chinese woman who runs the store nearby, and she like seduces Venom out of her body, and then Venom. So because we need to have Venom back just for a cameo because people like that.
When that started, I just was like, "Oh, not this again!" I just out loud, and then there she is, Venom.
That was one of the moments that made me cringe. I was just like, "Ugh, I don't." This scene just doesn't work for me.
I don't know why they keep doing this.
And then they get back together, and then she gets kidnapped like 30 seconds. There's a ton of scenes in this movie where it feels like they had a script and they just cut scenes out. So there's a scene where like all the scenes that usually you need to have setups for, they just happen. So there's a scene where they go to Eddie's house and they immediately get teleported to Michelle Williams' house, and then they're immediately at the church, and then Venom
and they just know where to go.
Church.
Like
there's only 4 locations in this movie. So
there's only one church in San Francisco.
You know?
So I guess it's got to be that one.
It's
maybe
very,
Eddie Brock could hear the gothic music and was like, I wonder if they're in a gothic castle.
He saw the film crews outside filming the movie, so he's like, that's the one.
That's the one. There we go.
And there's just a priest there performing the wedding. I guess they've kidnapped him.
I would have loved a scene where it was just this priest and it's like,
like a marriage certificate.
No, or he's just at home and he's in his pajamas, like with a TV tray watching like Jerry Springer eating out of like some cereal. And then and then a phone rings and Venom grabs him through the phone like Freddy or Nightmare on Elm Street.
So there's a scene that comes where Carnage goes through the internet and attacks somebody.
Yeah, he's like cyborg and he hacks the mainframe. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. And then what does Cletus say? His line is really funny. He's like, "Can you do the internet or something?" It's so funny. It's great.
Brief moment, Woody Harrelson, the person came through. It's just like, I don't know how these things work.
Woody Harrelson's doing the scene. He's like, line. And they have to tell him, "Can you do the internet?" Okay. Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's a very bare bones plot. It has all of it, but again, it's like, why does this movie need to be in this? And they already hotshotted the Venom Carnage fight. Like that's one of the only things you can do with the character when you don't have the larger Marvel universe for him to bounce off of. So you've already done that. So like, I guess you have to cross him over the MCU because there's just no other things for him to do. I will say one other weird thing is that when they're at Ravencroft and you see the evil scientist lady whose name I don't even know if she was named in the movie. There's one inmate who they keep cutting to who's named like Siegfried or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is this a character? Like, is this supposed to be like Kraven the Hunter? Because I know they've announced Kraven the Hunter played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's like, Is this them? And it's a random character named Siegfried, but he's played with Scroopius Pib. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
He's a rapper and musician I've been a fan of. He has this weird song where the chorus is like, "My name is Johnny Depp and I kill people." And it's really weird. And I was like,
so it's like Shia LaBeouf before Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, it was like pre meme, you know.
Pre-meme.
And I was like, and it's played by that guy, and it's not listed on IMDb or Wikipedia. And so I just saw him in the credits of the movie, and I was like, why is he in this movie? That's super random. So that's all I got for fun trivia. There's a Stan Lee like pseudo cameo in this movie too. Like they're standing, like there's a comic book rack, and there's just a comic book with just Stan Lee's face and name on it. I was like, oh, I don't know we're still doing that. Like they didn't even do that in the Disney Plus movies. So
yeah, that's true.
So yeah, Stan it warmed my heart to see Stan Lee's face again. So that's pretty much it for this movie. Like there's no good fight. There's a weird lack of action. There's like very few action
There's
scenes.
nothing really scary.
There's no scary things in it at all.
The scariest the movie gets is people are screaming in terror as Carnage kills them, which is pretty atypical.
Which is so it's uninventive. Like he doesn't do anything. There's one scene where he sticks a tentacle down a guy's like throat, but like he just stabs people. Like he doesn't even do the Carnage stuff. Also, I'll say for me, Carnage's voice is D. Bradley Baker from the PlayStation game where he has this like high pitched evil sound, which is meant to contrast Venom's deeper voice. In this movie, he just sounds like Venom too.
Yeah,
which is just kind of a waste.
Well, the whole thing's a waste. What was it? Was it behind the scenes, or was it in an episode we were talking and you're like, Venom 2 is weird because the second movie, we're already doing Carnage. Like, there's no build up. We're not preparing for it. It's just like, okay, Venom movie. Okay, Carnage movie. And it's just like no time at all. And not only that, it's like Carnage is in maybe 15, 16 minutes in time, probably less than that. And then he dies at the end, and that's it. I mean, you can always bring him back, whatever, who cares? But like,
yeah,
but it's
he dies
like,
after admitting that like he claims that he was abused by his family. That's why he killed them.
Well, Carnage
like,
also, Carnage the symbiote dies, but then also Cletus dies, and it's just like that's it. And then I guess what's her name? Shriek? Is that a character? Like, is this? So yeah, dead-ish maybe, unless they. I don't know, want to pull the whole, but they pulled out the thingy in the middle of the bell, and so now it's just surrounding her, and
now she's deaf. Isn't that ironic?
But like, it's just like, what a boring. Oh, and then the last scene before the credits, the police guy, monsters, and then his eyes turn blue, and it's it. And I heard people in my theater go, "What?" But not in the like curious what, but more in the like, I don't understand. Like, it officially broke everyone in the theater and got them to the point that they need to accept that this movie sucks. And
well, you also forget that detective is the person who shot Shriek as a kid. What a coincidence.
Whoa! Yeah, it's dumb.
No, she's dead. And he's like the one guy in the world who thinks she's dead, apparently. Because she's just been in Ravencroft the whole time.
And there's no like him being like, oh, I guess she is alive. It's just the next scene, he knows where she's at. And that's it.
Yeah, like I said, the movie, like, very quickly, there's no exposition. Like, they'll dump an exposition very quickly, and then they'll just go to the scene that needs to happen next.
In some movies, you can consider that efficient, but in those movies, it's well done.
Well, that's again, like, people I know, they're like, oh, it moved at such a quick pace, it didn't waste any time. I was like, yeah, but like,
but where's it
nothing
going?
Happens.
Yeah, like if it's not going anywhere, because even when they get to the fight for Venom and Carnage, I was like, okay, maybe this will be good. And then it's not. It's just not interesting. It's all the bad movies in the superhero canon take place in a church. It's just a fact. Daredevil takes place in a church. I'm pretty sure in Catwoman there's a church. I was about to say Cats, which also is true. Which I guess
this is a weird theorem you're putting forth.
You had this. I'm pretty sure Batman vs Superman definitely has a church in it, because Zack Snyder is like, ooh, isn't it cool when you put biblical imagery in a movie? That makes me smart.
Definitely Man of Steel.
Yeah, Man of Steel obviously had it.
Or like he's just sitting in front of a giant picture of Jesus.
Wow.
An example of subtle filmmaking.
It's just amazing. You got to take religion out of these movies, man. They got to be a-religious. I'm sorry, Christians, but you're ruining my superhero movies.
Yeah, I've never seen a movie that's so simultaneously full of personality and lacking personality. Like, it's really a weird. It's kind of interesting how they pull it off.
It's just awkward.
Where there's all these moments where like, I would watch this. And then it just becomes a standard superhero movie, just minus the things that kind of make those movies fun. It's very restrained when it shouldn't be. But then it like indulges in some weird ideas. Like, what if Venom was just a guy at a rave covered in glow sticks?
Or what if Carnage just kills someone with his tongue?
Yeah. But none of these kills have any blood or gore to them.
We were talking about like, because you were saying, in interviews with Andy Serkis, they were like, hey, why isn't this movie rated R? And then Andy Serkis is like, well, we're pushing it to the limit. We're really trying. We had to really work with the MPAA back and forth, whatever. And then the movie's sterile and nothing really happens. And I remember, this was definitely behind the scenes. I was like, what if it's like Kong Skull Island, where it's just like, how is this movie PG-13? Because Kong Skull Island does not feel PG-13. And even its one use of the F word isn't even like an intense scene where like a character yells or screams. It's
I like their use of the F word here. My theater popped big for that.
And so Kong Skull Island just feels like a good, fresh, horrific nightmare of a movie. And then Venom 2 doesn't push any envelopes. It's just like, I think my theater experience was like when I saw Rise of Skywalker, where it was like people just progressively became more and more like, oh, this is it. This is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, that one guy who laughed at inappropriate parts was the one time he laughed with everyone Like the theater unanimously found something funny for once, as opposed to the theater. Most 99.9% of theater thought things are funny,
and you write down a note. It worked. That's it.
So I actually, before we get into
the actual important part of this discussion,
so I'm trying to think of because where my brain is going is I'm wondering where the defenders of the movie are going to be, because I want to address their concerns, which is, I always like to give a movie a fair shake. And I'm trying to think of what other things people would like about it. And so I will say, as a story of a relationship, it does kind of go through those beats where Eddie and Venom have a breakup and then get back together. And by the end, Venom and Eddie say they love each other at the end of the movie.
Which is cute. All that stuff's kind of funny and cute. But it's also annoying because I'm I think the first Venom movie is annoying because I wanted it to it just didn't seem like that's who Venom was supposed to be, but I guess I just need to accept this interpretation. And that's why it feels like fan fiction, where it's what if you took the character and just changed it to be a different character?
So a key thing, so they're drawing heavily from the Lethal Protector comic series, which is also weird because Lethal Protector in the comics, Spider-Man and Venom could do an understanding where Spider-Man and Venom will just leave each other alone as long as Venom doesn't commit crimes. And then that's when he relocates to San Francisco, which is where the first Venom movie picks up. And then he sort of ends up embroiled by happenstance, basically. Someone comes out to try and attack. And so Spider-Man thinks Venom's turned back evil. The Spider-Man and Venom team up together. But again, his progression into a more heroic character is intrinsically tied to Spider-Man. And so they tried to hotshot that and push that forward, where Venom and Brock just kind of immediately get along. And so much of what makes Eddie Brock a villain in the comics is, again, tied to Spider-Man, where Spider-Man ruins his life and gets him fired from the Daily Bugle and all this stuff. But and then from there, he's able to sort of rebuild himself. Here, they just, Venom and Eddie Brock are an entirely different character than they are in the comics, which I'm fine with, but it's weird. I feel like there's a lot of stuff we haven't seen that we're supposed to assume it happens off screen, where again, that would have been a stronger movie if we saw more of Eddie and Venom just hanging out and getting a feel for the relationship. Because in the first movie, they just pretty quickly become a pair and become the We Are Venom thing. And then here, they kind of have to redo the same character arc again. It's very weird. They do the We Are Venom thing again in this movie.
It's weird.
Which already happened in the first movie, which is a big pet peeve of mine, where it's just no, this character arc already happened. It's time to do different things. But again, it's they don't know what to do with their own franchise. And it feels like they were killing time until they could do something fun, which was what the post-credit scene gets into. Yeah, I'm more frustrated than upset at the movie, but it's I'm struggling to think of things that I liked. You've already heard the things I liked. Everything else of the movie, it's either feels like the cut scenes out that make the scenes make more sense. There's no action. The things that would make a bad movie acceptable, funny scenes, action scenes, fun special effects, or just off the wall ideas, that's cut to as much of a minimum as possible, because this movie feels like they're trying to make it as widely approachable as possible, while the people involved clearly have kind of a different idea for what the movie should be like. Andy Serkis as a director has been very weird. The movie he did before this was a darker
Mowgli.
Take on Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Mowgli.
Mowgli.
Did you see that?
I kind of intended to on Netflix, and then it just like most Netflix movies, you forget that it's on your list, and then it's gone.
Because three or four of them come out every day, so you're just and it's if he feels like somebody who has a sense, or he wants to make these crowd pleaser movies, but he also has darker instincts, and I so it feels like he's also being held back here as well. So it's just a lot of interesting ingredients don't make a good soup. It's just kind of a letdown. But it doesn't matter, because they could have released, as I've said on Twitter, they could have released 90 minutes of Tom Hardy just vibing to the Eminem Venom song. Yeah. And it wouldn't matter, because all anyone would be talking about
is the end credit scene.
Is the there's no post credit scene, there's just a mid credit scene. But boy, is it a doozy. So
this would be what you consider spoilers, but the end credit scene is the
super
movie.
Spoilers.
Yeah, it's super spoilers, but it is what the movie's about, and it's all that matters. And it really contextualizes the rest of the movie. In fact, I couldn't really get into what I think about the creation of this movie other than talking about the end credit scene. I'll start with two things. One is the end credit scene. I'll describe the end credit scene and then kind of get into how Catherine reacted to it. But the end credit scene is Eddie Brock, after He's like, hey, he pulls a Dark Knight. It's like, oh no, they're coming after us. We have to go, even though it's like, I don't know why. Like,
yeah, as the not Commissioner Gordon monologues about how he's the hero we need and not the one we deserve.
Literally, exactly. And then he goes to like Mexico or something. He does what George Senior does at the end of season 3 of Arrested Development, and he's living down there. And it shows him and first off, I love how the end credit scene starts and it's just a soap opera. I was like, I
it's a
think
telenovela.
It's great.
So.
When it happened, I thought, okay, maybe this whole movie was a joke. maybe I'm the one who's wrong. And and then because I liked how that happened. And the end credit scene is also just very smart. I think it's the way it starts. Then it turns out it's Eddie and Venom are watching it together, and Venom's just saying it's his favorite show. How the characters need to love each other and how the one character needs to validate the other's feelings. And then Eddie's talking back and saying, like, it's really like, it's what you want. It is what the fan fiction is calling for. And then Venom starts talking about like, well, I have a lot more experience in this field because I've been alive for 1,000, 2,000, 9,000 years. So like, you couldn't even handle with your human pea brain the stuff that I've experienced. So then Eddie's like, try me. And that's all like, that's an interesting buildup. I'm like, hey, that could have been a really good movie to start this one out with. And then something like maybe by introducing like this new knowledge, it creates an alternative symbiote because the body needs to learn a way to reject what's happened. And then Carnage is made because it's this crazy mind. Nope, that's not what's happening. But anyways, right when Venom says, okay, fine, I'm going to reveal it to you. You get a wide shot of the room
just
that they're
a
in.
Taste, he says.
He says, just a taste. And the whole room starts shaking, and it looks like the world is changing, and the lights outside are going crazy. And Eddie's like, "What the heck's going on?" Which you're expecting. You're expecting Eddie to be completely like amazed by what's going on. But then Venom goes, "What's going on?" And you're like, "Uh-oh, did Venom like by opening up the other 90% of the human brain, like did it just like cause something to happen?" And no, I always think that's so funny.
It's going to be Limitless 3.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next movie to try and pull that. It's such an easy science fiction thing. Anyways, the scene kind of settles, and Venom and Eddie are like, what the heck just happened? And then you look at the TV, and there's the Daily Bugle, and there's Spider-Man, Tom Holland, and it is definitely what I wanted at the end of Shang-Chi. When in our Shang-Chi episode, when I was talking about that final fight scene, I said, wouldn't it be awesome if, like, theoretically, after Loki, there was some sort of wave that happened when they entered into the time after, what's his name?
Kang the Conqueror?
Kang the Conqueror. When Kang reaches the end of his time and is like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then something happens. And then in all the other Marvel movies, we get this wave that flies through. And if you've seen Loki, you know what it is. If you haven't, it's some sort of mysterious thing. And it causes dread. Because I felt dread in this end credit scene. Because I was like, whoa, this is a really interesting development. And then it reveals the universes have connected or something. Because now the Venom movies are the Marvel MCU are connected to it, with the Spider-Man movie definitely obviously connected to the upcoming Spider-Man movie. This scene elicited claps in my theater,
yes,
which was embarrassing.
People cheered in my theater.
People cheered, people clapped. My wife, as we drove home, said this was the Jeb Bush moment where the entire movie was bad, and then Jeb Bush, who has the script for this movie, goes, please clap. And everybody in the theater starts clapping. I've been trying to find a way to get Jeb Bush to show up into our podcast. So I was so thankful.
We should invite him on. If you know Jeb Bush,
yes, please let him know.
We'll review any movie he wants. Like if he wants to get on here and talk about, like for a few dollars more or some John Wayne movie or something, we'll do it.
Great. It'd be totally fun.
We'll review Tombstone with Jeb Bush.
Please clap. Here's the thing. I have two theories about this movie in particular, within the context of now knowing that Daddy Disney Marvel now owns Venom for at least the next 2 movies or something. My one theory is Sony went, all right, we got to try our best because this is the last time we're going to be able to say we get all the money for this movie. And this was their best, and it's bad. And so it's like this is like,
let's see how Morbius is.
Exactly. And we're driving home and I'm like, oh my gosh, Morbius, and Kat just loses it. It's like we almost probably had to pull over because she was laughing so hard. It was so like Morbius is going to be a disaster. And then secondly, the other interpretation I have is Sony goes, well, we're giving Venom over to Marvel anyway. Who cares anymore? So let's make the worst thing in the world so that they have to accept that now Venom 2 is in the canon for the MCU. And so then they made this as if to spite Marvel, because it's just like, who cares? That's kind of how I feel about this movie. Either way, Venom 2 sucks regardless. It's not good. What are you thinking about this end credit scene though? You said people clapped in your theater? Did anyone throw their popcorn or throw up? So good. Marvel, I love you. I love you, Marvel. Give me the IV, baby. Give me the IV. I love Tom Holland.
I was genuinely pretty excited about it because I didn't think they would actually do it, because Kevin Feige has not been coy about his not being a fan of integrating the Sony films in. There's been some semi-famous moments where like Amy Pascal, while doing press, will make comments being like, oh yeah, it's all connected, and Kevin Feige will quickly cut it and be like, oh no, like he'll like try and like politely like divert the conversation, because understandably so. Like, it'd be one thing if these movies were all really well received and great, but I can see not wanting to dilute your franchise by including these movies in them. So like the first off, I also mentioned that we didn't talk about it, but I actually find a lot of Venom's offhand comments to be pretty funny in the movie. There's an early thing where like Venom needs to eat brains in order to survive, and so the way to satiate him is to eat chickens and chocolate, which has some of the same chemicals. But he doesn't want to eat the chickens they have because the chickens are best friends.
Yeah.
And it's like little things like that give the character some like character that is otherwise lacking throughout the movie.
That's kind of the Tumblr artwork thing where it's like Jason handing out Halloween candy to kids.
Yeah. Like, which like that's projection where like fans kind of want to take these characters that
and be best
like
friends.
Jason is not a good guy, but like trying to give him some depth that isn't there, or make him humanize him, so to speak. This movie does it generally pretty well with Venom, but they like seemingly drop it at a moment's notice to make the rest of the movie happen. Anyway, so like him talking about the Spanish soap opera they're watching is fun. So immediately, the minute this happened, the internet just exploded. Like, I went online and people are freaking out about it for a variety of reasons. One is that this scene kind of makes zero sense. How in the world do they teleport to the MCU via brain, via Venom thinking something? It doesn't make any sense.
I think it's just timing. I think it's that whatever happens in the new Spider-Verse 2, the live action adaptation, changes something in the past. Obviously, we know from the trailer that it's like there's an event that takes they do a multiverse thing, but the timing of when it happens is weird. That's sort of what's difficult, because is it happening at the ending of Far From Home, or does the multiverse, even though it happens later, just affect something like a year prior? I don't know.
So a couple of things. First, so far, all the recent Marvel properties, even the What If cartoon, have really played around with the multiverse and included events that would be damaging to it. You have the events of Loki, which create a bunch of branching timelines. You have Scarlet Witch becoming the Scarlet Witch in WandaVision. You have the events that'll happen in Spider-Man, where Doctor Strange will make a spell that destroys the multiverse or whatever. And then the What If cartoon has had some very bizarre things happen to it, which I won't necessarily spoil because the season hasn't wrapped up yet. So it's totally fine if this is just one in a series of weird events that all culminate in the multiverse just falling apart. If it is the result of Doctor Strange's spell, timing doesn't really matter. I've already seen some people complain about this, but like in the Spider-Verse movie, for example, Spider-Gwen gets blasted like a week into the past after the Hadron Collider explodes. Right. So it doesn't matter. Also, it doesn't matter. I can't underline that enough. Comic books have all kinds of
all that matters
bizarro
is Venom
nonsense.
Is now in Spider-Man. That's it.
I was talking to a friend. I was like, screw it. Just give Venom the ability to transport through dimensions. That makes everything easier.
It really does.
What's interesting is the dialogue, because Venom is talking about like a shared consciousness, which is a thing in more recent Venom comics where the symbiotes share like a hive mind,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All of the Venom lore stuff, I wish we explored more. It was an interesting line that Venom was afraid of Carnage just because Carnage is red. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'd love to hear more about like the hierarchy. Is it like Cat's like, is this like the vampires in Twilight where like the newborns are just like crazy, and so you just don't want to get into a fight with them because they're just wacko crazy?
Yeah, they're feral.
So that's like kind of neat.
There's a whole lore there. So in the comics, those symbiotes are created by a guy named Null, who's essentially like the god of the symbiotes, and he goes to war with the Celestials, and he creates a giant sword that like he uses to cut off the head of a Celestial, which is in the comics, that's the head of Nowhere, the planet we see in the movies where like the Collector is. Specifically, his sword goes on to become the weapon used by Gore the God Butcher, who's played by Christian Bale in the upcoming Thor: Love and Thunder. So people wonder if this is how they're going to introduce like all that stuff into the larger universe with like Null and things like that, because there's a shared consciousness. Also, the way this scene plays out is Venom saying like, "Oh, there's all this shared information. It would blow your stupid human mind if you knew it." And then when he sees Spider-Man on the screen when they teleport, he just says something like, "This guy," and he licks the screen.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Characteristically very different though from the Venom we've had from the last two movies. Because I was like, why would he want to eat Spider-Man? Right. Other than maybe he gets the same consciousness as Venom from Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi.
Exactly. So like the idea is he's an anti-hero. They're doing the lethal protector thing, but if he's sharing consciousness, maybe he has the memories of a symbiote from Spider-Man 3,
or even the Spider-Mans from the comics,
or maybe there's a whole multiverse of Venoms who have done battle with Spider-Man. And so it's just one of those things which like, and no matter where you are, no matter what world or continuity, Venom and Spider-Man are at odds, which I'd be fine with that. So the thing is, there's supposed to be a Sinister Six villain lineup in the new Spider-Man movie. The debate among leakers and rumor mills is who are the members. A lot of people are saying it's going to be a Rhino for Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's going to be like a sixth member.
Yes, give him his chance.
Is awesome. Oh, little spider. Like, yes, give it to me. But people wonder if it's going to be Venom, or if like Venom is actually going to team up with the Spider-Man to fight the villains, or if he's just going to be held as like a post-credits thing. You know what I mean? Like Spider-Man ends, but there's like, you know, Venom just shows up to fight him, and that's a good tease for future projects or whatever.
Do we know the runtime for the new Spider-Man movie? Because how is it not going to be
80 million hours?
It has to be like, it's got to be
actually
the Irishman.
8-part miniseries that you have to buy 8 tickets to see. I'm already seeing people complain online where they're like, I don't like this. I hope this isn't going as far as you think it is. I don't want to have to watch Venom 1 and 2 in my MCU rewatches. These movies are terrible.
Who is doing these rewatches that everyone talks about? I never do it. We did it for the podcast 2 years ago of the pandemic because everyone was depressed and we needed something to do. And that was it. But I never sit down and go, I'm going to rewatch these.
I'm considering Spider-Man for
I'll
Spider-Man
do that,
thing.
But it's also been like 2 decades since I've watched Spider-Man, so why not? Like, I'll do that. Yeah, it'll be tough going through Amazing Spider-Man though. That's rough. Yeah, Garfield's a fun actor. I love him. I love watching him. But oof, those movies.
I will say that like the one kind of thing that I'm kind of excited about is I like the idea of this character interacting with the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes,
like he literally just eats people's heads. Like I want to see what this guy has to say to.
I want to watch him actually eat someone's head. He hasn't done it yet.
He'd be a fun thing where it's like there's a villain that none of them want to deal with, so Venom just like kills him.
Why not?
Like stuff like that would be fun.
Yeah, why not? I mean, that's like what's that one still from one of the Superman comics where it's just Superman punching Joker's heart and like Batman's in the background,
Injustice,
like yeah. Wait, was that from an Injustice adaptation?
I think so.
Because I know in Injustice that happens, but
yeah, I know it's happening in Injustice. Yeah, but like. I like this like wacky Tom Hardy performance where it's just like, again, he's like almost like cartoony character plucked out of like a 90s comedy, and just seeing him interact with like what is the established tone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the fun of continuity. And I called it. When we did our continuity episode, I said continuity is about to get blown out the window with all this Spider-Man stuff. Yeah. So let's talk about it now. And so now we're potentially in a world where like Venom 1 and 2 kind of are in continuity of the MCU, but there's going to be people who are going to be like, oh, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., not canon. Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me? if we're gonna live in a world with these these terrible Venom movies, can you at least give me Daredevil?
Right.
But yeah, like the fun is like seeing characters that should not interact don't mix, seeing them have to like hang out and spend time together. They got us again, man. It's just one of those things where it's like, this movie is horrible. I don't like it, but I'll see what happens next. Like, gosh darn it. Because the only thing people talk about is like the next only event you can do with Venom is Maximum Carnage, which is literally like the Carnage type symbiotes are like raining down from the world and creating tons of carnages. That would be kind of interesting for a big hullabaloo. There's also, I don't know if you know anything about the Secret Wars comic, which is what they're talking about adapting, and the rumors that's what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I'm knowing the MCU, they tend to do hybridized versions of stuff where they'll take a popular name people recognize and then take elements that people like from the comics and then discard the things people don't like. Which is funny because like the new Spider-Man movie is adapting things from One More Day, which is like one of the most unanimously hated Spider-Man stories.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
But they're removing a lot of the elements that people don't like about that. Like he's not married to Mary Jane, and Aunt May is dying as far as we know. He's not like sacrificing everything just to save Aunt May's life, which is stupid because she's gonna die sometime, Peter. She's like 100 years old. It's time to let go of Aunt May. But so in Secret, basically like this, when they're all suiting up and getting new like tech, Spider-Man goes over this thing and is like, this goo turns his suit black, which is where the black suit comes from. Then we get like the Todd McFarlane run with Spider-Man where like, or I should say he's doing the artwork where, that's where like the black suit comes from, and the black suit starts making him go crazy, and then he gets rid of it, and the suit finds him again. He's in a church, and the church bells make the symbiote detach from him, and it goes, finds Eddie Brock, et cetera, et cetera. So I could see them doing kind of something like that where like all these characters get transported to one place, and that's their excuse to mix and match the continuities or whatever. But who knows? I will say, like, to the credit of the Disney overlords, they do a pretty good job of taking event comics and making them into entertaining movies without all being bogged down in endless continuity. But we're getting to a breaking point because what are we hitting? Like, there's like apparently like 20, 30 Marvel projects in the works right now or something like that. Something crazy.
And when they keep making these crossovers, they're increasing the count of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I mean, now Venom 1 and 2 are considered in the canon.
Maybe.
So now it's
this is
over
going to be
30.
highly debated. So on the Marvel Studios, Marvel Cinematic Universe subreddit, they were deleting posts about Venom 2 because they're like, it's not an MCU movie. And then finally they put up one sticky post where it's like, okay, this one post, you could talk about the post-credit scene, but like the 99% of this movie does not take place in the MCU. It's not an MCU movie, just post-credit scene is, which I love, like the splitting of hairs. But yeah, so like, there's a whole like snobby Marvel Cinematic Universe thing where like the MCU, for its faults, has a pretty consistent level of quality because of the quality control you have with Kevin Feige and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
which is probably why the end credit scene's good. I was like, hey, this was good. Had sort of a mounting good short film kind of dread. You probably had David Sandberg come and direct because he does great short films. And then like,
or yeah, Kevin Feige got a first look at that script and was like, oh, okay, like change that. Like,
yeah, exactly. And then Kevin Feige, had the power to be like, okay, you get the rest of the 90 minutes, but I get this 1-2 minute scene. And then that's it. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about any of this anymore. I mean, doesn't Disney know that, like, stop pandering to geeks and nerds? They totally destroyed Star Wars, and now they're going to do it again. You can't mess with these people's identities. They will destroy you. And like, it's going to happen, man. It's going to happen.
Well, this movie is exceedingly successful marketing for Spider-Man. That is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I hate that I just sat down to watch a commercial.
This one credit scene did more for the marketing of the movie than any number of shirts and hats and pop figures you could have made. Like, we are already talking about Spider-Man. Like, technically, we don't even know if this connects at all. This is technically a whole other franchise of movies. But what we're talking about is, well, man, No Way Home. What's going to happen? Is Venom going to be there? He's going to fight with Spider-Man, for Spider-Man? Is he going to try and kill one of the Spider-Man? That's all we're talking about. It's hook, line, and sinker. They got us, and they got the internet. Like, that's what everyone's talking about right now. And who cares if the movie's bad? It's just, it's a 90-minute disposable. I think that's probably why they cut it down to 90 minutes. it wouldn't surprise me if there's like a more conventional 110 minute cut of the movie somewhere with more scenes that make a movie that were cut out.
I could not do it
because they were just like, oh, this is terrible, whatever, just push it out
just
there.
Get them as quickly to that end as you can. Yeah, because it got people clapping. This was the Rage Against ending where it's just like, well, if you just make it really cool in the last second of the movie and everyone cheers, it's like you got your dad and his best friend walking out with their grease-stained t-shirts. That was a good movie. I had a good time with that one. And then they drive home and they don't remember it. That's it.
That's what people were walking out of the theater. They're going, oh, yeah, I was thoroughly entertained. Like, everyone was saying that.
I walked out and I said to Kat, nobody looks good in this movie, and everyone's ashamed. That's what I said.
There was a guy in the parking lot just going, oh, man, that breakfast scene. Oh, it was great stuff. I love that.
The scene that's in the trailer? You didn't need to go to the movies to see it.
This movie, so.
You didn't even need to go.
I'm curious as to how this will play out, because like I said, there's a whole sandbox of stuff you could do by mixing and matching these movies, but I really feel like Sony is trying to bargain with Disney. Like they want to really underline the sharedness of using Spider-Man. So they want to help use Spider-Man to build their own little franchise of loosely connected Spider-Man characters. There's rumor that they're making a Madame Web movie that's going to kind of like play in the multiverse stuff. I like the rumor that they're just going to like take one of these Spider-Man like Andrew Garfield and just throw him into the Sonyverse. So they can just be two Spider-Man running around. Everyone gets what they want. I think that's not a bad idea, honestly, where everyone's happy. And then when you want, you can just have everyone pop over and hang out for big event things. Kind of like what they did with Supergirl in the Arrowverse for a little bit. I don't know if my references are getting a little too out there for you, but
does she just show up as a different character? And
so there was a period where Supergirl was established to exist on a different Earth than all the Arrowverse characters. Mm-hmm. And when they needed her for crossover things, because they have an established way to actually like traverse different worlds, they would just pop over to get her to help them out when like there's an invasion of aliens or something. And then in the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing, they just merged all the Earths together. Right. So Black Lightning and Supergirl just got added to the Arrowverse like retroactively.
Well, that's cool.
Fun stuff. And some people think that's what happened here. That what we're seeing is that the Sony universe was merged with the MCU when Doctor Strange and Kang and all that stuff happened at once. What it did is it merged the two worlds, which I think is a terrible idea. But wouldn't that be funny if, like, at the end of Morbius, the reason that Vulture's in the movie is that they just got merged together? And so, like, I can picture it, like, you're sitting there, like, oh, man, this movie's terrible. I couldn't believe it. This is just as bad as Venom 2. And at the end of the movie, like, bloop, like, Morbius is hanging out with Blade or whatever. And you're just like, oh, no. Like, why do we have to keep watching these?
I just love that people clapped, and it's not even like Tom Holland had to come in to shoot a new scene.
It was a picture of Tom Holland.
just a picture from the other movie. It couldn't even be just like a set photo.
This was clearly just footage they shot.
How can we spend no money and influence everybody? People, all the pop collectors out there. Oh my gosh! It's just like it's just a photo.
What if they released like a Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage Spider-Man pop?
And it's a television set with him in it.
I was gonna say they're just gonna use like unsold pops from like Far From Home and just like put them in new boxes, but that's a better idea.
Yeah,
it's just like a TV screen with like Tom Holland's face on it.
Yeah,
Tom Holland from Cherry. Like, who cares?
That's right. And no, the end credit scene does not make the movie. Stop giving into the meme. It's not how it works.
It's online. It's leaked online. I sent it to my friends. I was like, it's here. I'm not saying you should watch it, but like, if you really don't want to see the movie but you don't want it spoiled for you, like you're one of those people, it's out there. And they're like, all of them chose to look up the ending as opposed to, because they're like, I don't want to watch this movie, Dan. I was like, I don't blame you. It's not very good.
So
now
boring.
We're all talking about it, even though they didn't see it, because they were like, Dan, I did not like Venom 1. Can you tell me if Venom 2 is better? And I said, what I said earlier is like, if you like Venom, it's kind of about the same. They're like, okay, then we don't want to watch it. So like, yeah, it's out there. It leaked like days before the movie even came out, apparently. Which thank God I missed that.
And I guess nobody believed it, or
well, people are weird about spoilers, you know. But like for me, like I'm actually glad we saw this. I will say the experience of being completely caught off guard by this, of going, no way, I can't believe they're actually doing this. That was a good feeling. And
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to see that before the internet ruined it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, it's kind of weird that that's how we like watch movies now. It's just getting to them first, like it's a competition.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, I would not think the movie's worth just the end credit scene. But I also don't know if this will stream somewhere soon. I know that Sony has some weird deal with Netflix now.
Yeah, a bunch of Sony movies are going to Netflix. That's about all I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's I mean, if you listen to us now, you can go on Reddit and talk to people about it and have fun making theories about seeing the movie. So,
but apparently you can't go to the Marvel Reddit and post about it. So
there's one sticky post that says like, you can talk about it here, but please don't post about it. It's like, baloney. Come on.
Yeah, just who cares? It's technically it counts. Whatever. This is weird. I do not identify as someone who puts their value and worth in movies, even though I am a white guy with a beard who has a movie podcast. And so I just do not understand when it comes to this form of identity worship.
Well, just wait until the post-credit scene of Last Night in Soho shows the main character, like, she teleports one last time, and she's in a hotel room, and is showing the Spider-Man footage.
Yeah. Then
wait.
If somehow French Dispatch ends up to be in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Dune even. Oh man, that's what I want. Yeah. I need everything to be pandered to my identity as a Marvel fan.
That's the only way I can only like watch movies now, is if how they play into the overall narrative.
I can't watch Malignant. I don't care about Candyman unless it's connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Would you imagine if like, you know, whoever
Candyman becomes
Annihilus is attacking Marvel, like, who can help us now? And then like they all turn and look in mirrors, start saying Candyman.
Tony Todd shows up with the CG makeup,
and he's just like, racism is bad, and he attacks Annihilus.
And kills a couple cops too. He kills the one at the end of Venom that says monsters. Like what? I still don't know what that was about.
I have no idea. I'm admittedly not a super nerd, but I was just like,
his eyes turn blue. What is it about? I don't know. And he like aggressively gets murdered by Naomi Harris. It's like, it's a slow paced, painful death, and then she kicks him off the edge of the roof, and like he doesn't choke, he just hits a thing and doesn't fall. I don't know, it's weird.
The best way I can describe like her and Woody Harrelson's performance is there's a scene in the Wonder Woman movie where Professor Poison and what's his name, who plays a bad guy in every movie he's in, are like, they kill a bunch of World War I villains, but like German generals. They throw a gas bomb in a room in one gas mask. And then Professor Poison looks at him and goes, but the gas mask, it doesn't work. And he's like, but they don't know that. And they cackle together going, ha 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 ha.
Oh, that was great though. I love it.
It was awesome. That's pretty much what their performance is like in this movie, where they're just cackling and they can't stop making out as they're driving away and gaggling maniacally. It was fun seeing that and dropped in the middle of what is kind of being marketed as a more like gritty, like alternative to Marvel movies. And they have like a funny, like Snidely Whiplash, Bonnie and Clyde meets Bonnie and Clyde dynamic.
This sucks. What do you got for us for recommendations? What do you got?
In terms of commentaries, I am going to recommend from Crossway. R.C. Sproul has a series of commentaries that are put out. They're called the St. Andrew's Expositional Commentary Set. I'm specifically right now reading through his Matthew commentary, and it's really great. I mean, R.C. Sproul, I don't need to like pitch R.C. Sproul onto you. He's one of the great theologians of our time. He's sorely missed, and his wonderful expositional writing style is very similar to his preaching style. It comes right through. So I'm going to specifically mention the Matthew one because that's what I'm reading right now, but his whole set is great. So that's my commentary recommendation. My
recommendation is going to be Daniel. Have you ever heard of Taika Waititi?
Yeah, he's the guy. I couldn't think of a joke.
You could have just said no.
He's the guy from Free
That's the
Guy,
punchline.
right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he's popularized from Free Guy fame. Yeah, I've been trying to think of movies to watch that are good Halloween-y kind of movies to check out. And What We Do in the Shadows from Taika Waititi is just
so
fantastic movie. It's so funny. The premise is it's basically a mockumentary office style film where this group is invited in to interview or to follow and interview some flatmates, but they're all vampires. And where is it set? Is it Sweden? Are they Switzerland? So
I don't know. Good question. I don't remember off the top of my head.
But it's got some good Euro comedy to it, and it's very, very funny as we follow Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clements, and one other guy that I never remember. Jermaine Clements is from Flight of the Conchords. And the three of them are vampires who've been alive for a very, very, very long time. And it's just amazingly funny. There's one sequence, just to give a taste of the kind of humor. They follow with classic vampire lore. And so they can't go into places unless they're invited in. And so there's a scene where they're trying to go out to the nightlife. And as they're narrating over it, saying, "We love to go clubbing," it then shows them trying to go into clubs. And they're like, "You have to invite us in," to the bouncer. And the bouncer's like, "Why would I invite you in? Just go in." And they're like, "No, you have to invite us in. We can't go in unless you invite us in." And the bouncer's like, "Well, I'm not going to do that. You could just walk in." And then they get all disappointed and they have to go to the next club. And so it's just that kind of dumb humor of like, but yeah, what if vampires were real? And so it's great. You got to check it out. It's totally clean. The only thing that's not clean is they have like cutaway visuals of classic depictions of art for vampires. And one of them is just like a naked dude, but like his genitals are like on his back for some reason. And it's just stupid. And they really like it because they keep showing it over and over. It's that kind of humor. It's very, very funny. But what's your fun recommendation, Dan?
My fun recommendation. So I was trying to think of something that would kind of vaguely relate to this movie because I was just like, there's got to be a better creature feature, two monsters fighting kind of movie. You know, I mean, the obvious would be King Kong versus Godzilla, which came out recently, which I thought was pretty good. I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction. I recommend a movie called Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I think that was our second or third thing I reviewed on the podcast, even.
Really?
Way back in the day, those episodes that people seem to still listen to when I'm like, "Hey, I do a podcast."
I've never listened to this show, so
yeah,
I have no idea.
It's a great movie.
Great movie. It is a little offbeat. It's a little different. It's the marketing for the movie very clear did not know how to market the film at all because it's about a woman who, when she can control a kaiju monster, and the reason for it and what it all means is kind of hidden from the audience for a little bit. And then what it ultimately is about is a story about abuse and trauma and like the unintended consequences and effects that has in both people that are the victims and the people around the victims, and about sort of the waves that abuse has on people. And it also kind of has some monster fighting, which is why I'm gonna recommend it. It's if you're an open-minded viewer and you're ready for the best performance of Jason Sudeikis' career.
Yes,
I would definitely recommend it. It also has the Anne Hathaway charm, and I think she shines in more unconventional roles.
It's kind of the last of her good movies because the last few movies Anne Hathaway has done have been.
You didn't think that Witches
stinkers.
Movie remake was good?
What about Serenity 2019?
Great movie. I don't know how we keep talking about that movie.
And she had a Netflix one that was apparently just terrible. It was from like last year, I think. So
she's one of those actors that I get that like there's a lot of actors. I keep saying like, oh, they're one of the, but I'm finding more and more that actors seem to really want to do weird stuff. Like they want to do stuff that like really makes them flex their acting chops, do something fun.
Well, that's why she did Colossal. She said, "I want to do a good drama that's also strange," and that's kind of been what she's been doing lately. But
well, God bless her. Like she's like, yeah, she really shines. It's like she takes all that charm she has from your old school rom-coms, Princess Diaries type movies, She Princess Diaries Miss Congeniality. Ah, goodness, I can't
She
remember.
did Princess Diaries 1 and 2.
Okay. And she places that in like what is borderline a Lifetime drama, but with science fiction elements.
With Colossal?
With Colossal.
Yeah,
Great stuff. It's on Hulu, I think. So check it out.
It's definitely a Hulu Eternal.
Yes.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/cinematic doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirleyan, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck. We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the independent theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.